Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2005 to 2006 series, Marvel Zombies. It all started with Ultimate Fantastic Four. Well, really it started with the Ultimate Universe in general. Well, okay, I could probably keep going back like this until the beginning of time, but let's just start there. The Ultimate Universe was an attempt by Marvel to reboot their entire continuity so that they could update their various heroes to the modern day. Well, what was the modern day? 22 years ago. Sheesh, I'm old. Where was I? Ultimate Spider-Man kicked it off, but the popularity of the series exploded, leading to many more mighty Marvel heroes getting their own updated reboot, including the X-Men, the Avengers, and yes, the Fantastic Four. With its growing popularity, it would only be a matter of time before fans were demanding a crossover between the regular Marvel Universe and the Ultimate Universe, and before long, rumors began to circulate that exactly that was going to happen in the pages of Ultimate FF. A comic book solicitation informed everyone that Reed Richards from the Ultimate Universe would be making contact with an older Reed Richards from another universe, who would be mentoring him and telling him about his life and achievements. But when that comic finally came out, well, the older Reed that Ultimate Reed goes to meet wasn't quite what anyone expected. Instead of being in the main continuity or 616 universe, Reed found himself in a universe where all the great Marvel superheroes had been turned into zombies. Turns out that a zombie century had fallen from apparently some other dimension down through the skies and had crash landed in downtown New York, where he had quickly begun converting superheroes to join him in undeath. The still living Reed was rescued by Magneto, of all people, hero and protector of the last humans alive, as in around 48 hours the superpowered zombies were more than enough to eat basically the entire world free of human existence. With Magneto's help, Reed is able to reverse the teleportation that brought him to Zombie World and return home, with the leader of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants staying behind to nobly sacrifice himself in order to destroy the machine and ensure that the zombies never got the chance to spread their terror to another world. And that probably could have been the end of it, but Marvel and fans loved the marketable potentiality of having their own zombie characters to play around with, and so almost immediately, before Mark Millar was even done pinning his Ultimate Fantastic Four issues, Walking Dead and Invincible creator Robert Kirkman was brought on to continue the story in his own series that would lead to 4 sequels, multiple spin-offs, and a couple reboots. And while I'm not going to cover every single Marvel Zombies comic ever, I'm going to try and cover at least the main 5 original stories, and hopefully at least get a couple of the spin-offs. And if I'm going to do that, I better get a move on and get to that, so let's kick this off with book number 1 and take this away! The comic isn't even open and it's already awesome. The covers for the series are zombified recreations of famous Marvel covers from history, and I greatly appreciate the collected edition including comparisons between the originals and the updates. It's a really cool and fun thing to open the comics with and became a regular feature of presentations of Marvel Zombies, even thematically reappearing in other places like the Marvel Legendary deck building game where the zombie cards use zombie art based on other art of the characters. And the abilities on the cards reflect their living counterparts. Look, you know I'm gonna slip in a reference to board games if I can, and I can. Anyway, as soon as we do get to the comic itself, we find it picking up straight where Ultimate Fantastic Four left off, with Magneto surprisingly still alive and running from an unseen opponent. I like how Kirkman crafted this scene, perfectly designed in a way that if you didn't read the preceding story, then you're not feeling like you missed anything, but if you did read it, then this opening has a lot more impact. Because we soon see that he's running from some freaky deaky looking versions of some of our favorite Marvel heroes. These guys. Mainly we'll focus on Spidey, Giant Man, Luke Cage, Thor, and Colonel America. Yeah, he's not Captain here. Never got them promotions in this world, I guess? Or got promoted further? I don't really know the order that shit goes in. Also, fun fact, Kirkman was originally planning to make the series about Luke Cage in a sort of I Am Legend Last Man Alive story, since having unbreakable skin means zombies probably wouldn't have been able to bite him to turn him in the first place. But Luke Cage had already appeared in the original Fantastic Four issues that introduced the zombies, so that story idea was out. So instead, we get Magneto, who proves he's the master of magnetism by impaling all his zombie pursuers with various loose metal objects lying around, and even forcing Colonel America to slice off part of his own head with his own shield. Which is a little weird, since normally Captain America's shield is made of vibranium, which is not supposed to be magnetic, but I guess maybe Colonel America's shield isn't as fancy? Should've gotten that promotion to get the good stuff, Colonel. Or demotion, you know what I mean. Also, I think this was partly done to indicate that the zombies are a bit different than the ones you might be used to, as the Colonel keeps going even after losing half his head. Apparently, just damaging the brain isn't enough to stop them. Magneto manages to lose his zombie posse, and we learn that he's not the last survivor in existence, as some mysterious person contacts him from Asteroid M, still floating up in space, and thus making it the perfect safe hideaway to have escaped the zombie apocalypse. But while Magneto plans to get away so he can rejoin his fellow survivors on the asteroid, he doesn't make it very far before being found by Hawkeye. So Magneto chops off the Archer's head and drops a building on more of the zombies, but he just can't help falling into his old ways and starts to monologue, giving Wasp a chance to sneak up on him and bite his throat out. Yikes. And then the other zombies rip apart and devour the remains of the mutant mastermind. Because yeah, turns out we weren't having a Magneto is the last person alive story either. Oh no, this story called Marvel Zombies is, in fact, about those Marvel zombies. So we start to learn a little bit about them, like the fact that once they've eaten, they regain a bit of their senses and return, to a degree, back to their normal selves. Hulk, no longer hungry, reverts to being Banner, even though Banner, being a smaller person, causes all the mutant he just ate to come bursting out of his belly. And Spider-Man starts crying about how he apparently ate his wife Mary Jane and Aunt May after turning, something that wasn't really bothering him while he was still hungry. It's even actually kind of a plot point that he gets all sentimental like this after eating. But the zombies aren't able to focus on themselves for too long because the hunger quickly comes back, especially with a shiny, delicious looking morsel flying around above their heads. And just like fish, they're ready to bite at the shiny object. But the Silver Surfer is too fast and too airborne for their already decaying bodies to reach, so they attempt to come up with some kind of plan to deal with him. And yeah, they don't know who the Silver Surfer is, which is just one of many hints that this story is probably set in a younger Marvel universe, like having Luke Cage wearing his swanky 70s costume, or Iron Man's early armor design, or Spider-Man actually being married to MJ. Remember those heady days of yesteryear? What? I'm bitter. Anyway, Giant Man goes off on his own to a secret lab to supposedly look for an answer of what to do about Silver Surfer, but really he's looking for answers about their disease. And in order to keep his brain present enough to work, he has secretly kept Black Panther as a tasty treat. Jan secretly followed him and discovers his secret, so Hank Pym does what he always does when his wife embarrasses him. He takes it out on her. And yes, that's right, he bites off Jan's head. Seriously, this guy's a piece of shit. This does reveal to us that zombies find eating each other to be absolutely disgusting. And Giant Man actually already knew this, so they already, in the brief time that they had been zombies, reached a point where they were so hungry that they had tried to eat each other and found it too repulsive to bother. But while he's busy grabbing his munchies, Silver Surfer shows up again to the rest of the zombie horde, where we see an even larger group of them than we've seen before, with both what had been heroes and villains in the before times. He announces that their world is set to be devoured by Galactus, but the zombies, they ain't really listening, cause they're only interested in one thing: to find out how edible that metal body is. Surfer is far too powerful for them all, though, and he uses his cosmic power to make a great big zombie mess. Kinda like a monster mash, I suppose. Zombie Wolverine even loses his arm because his bones may still be adamantium, but his flesh and muscle are rot. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, Kirkman really tried to go over and above board with grossing people out. But Hulk is the hungriest one there is, as he will definitely let you know multiple times throughout this series, and even as a zombie, he continues to be pretty unstoppable. So he alone manages to get close to Silver Surfer and then bites his head off. God, I feel like everything I'm saying could be easily taken so out of context. Look, just keep your mind out of the gutter for this review, okay? I'm talking about zombies here. Zombies. Spider-Man, Giant Man, Iron Man, Colonel America, Luke Cage, Wolverine, and Hulk, of course, managed to bogart the entirety of the Surfer's juicy bits. Because they're zombies. Talking about zombies, get your mind out of the gutter. With the Surfer though, the zombies don't only find their hunger sated, they find themselves powered up with the piece of the power cosmic that Galactus gave to his Herald. But before they get to really deal with the ramifications of that, the big purple guy himself shows up. And he's not particularly happy at the concept that these little zombies think they're hungry. I do love that contrast, honestly, the endless hunger that has driven Galactus for millennia uncounted versus the recent hunger for flesh of these zombies. It does seem like this was the natural progression for the series to go, and I really kind of love that this is where it went. Most of the supervillains stick around to try and feast on Galactus, despite him being even more powerful than the Surfer was, and they didn't have much chance at that. Our main zombies though, the ones who actually managed to eat Surfer, decide to limp off while the big guy is distracted, since even their cosmic blasts prove ineffective against him. They quickly gather up material from all over the world, including some refined vibranium in Wakanda, to build a machine that lets them concentrate and amplify their combined siphoned cosmic energy into a blast that actually does manage to hurt Galactus. But zombies can't share. That should be the name of a children's book. And so they end up fighting with each other over their Galactus scraps. This leads to fights like Spider-Man taking out Venom, as the symbiote was already apparently dying since it needed a living host to continue to survive, which it didn't have. Or Wolverine taking out Juggernaut with a mouth stab and some cosmic energy. Again, I'm talking about zombies. Zombies. Or Red Skull ripping out what little brain material remained in Colonel America's head, which does prove to be enough to finally kill a zombie. Fully destroying the brain seems to be the only thing. This does get Red Skull killed as well, but at least it was worth it for him. Die happy, if nothing else. When the dust settles, only our main zombies are left standing, and they use their new freedom to finish off Galactus and devour every last bit of delicious cosmic goodness. Yum. As it did when they ate Surfer, we'll see that this powers them up, making them all into little mini Galactus. Galactusi. Multiple Galacti? Anyway, they each become a little Galactus, and we'll jump 5 years into the future to see them spreading their hunger around the universe. That's not quite all the story though, and not just because there's a sequel. Well, multiple sequels. Well, a direct sequel and a prequel, and then like 3 sort of sequels that might as well be another series, and then an additional side story. I'm getting off the point. The point is, in this comic, we also see that while Giant Man was busy dealing with Silver Surfer, Black Panther managed to slip away with the remains of Janet Van Dyne's head. And no matter how much she demands to let her eat him, he continues to carry her with him. On the run, he comes across Magneto's acolytes, led by Fabian Cortez. We saw them most prominently on this channel when I covered Fatal Attractions a couple years ago. The acolytes first assume he's a zombie, which is pretty understandable given his condition, but they eventually come to accept that Magneto is dead and agree to accept Black Panther into their group. At Panther's insistence, Wasp is also brought along. Up on Asteroid M, we see that Forge has also managed to survive, and he offers to help T'Challa with his little problem. And by that I mean regarding his missing leg, being something of a prosthetic limb expert himself. A new acolyte named Lisa also offers to help him, but that's with a very different kind of problem, if you know what I mean. When we skip those 5 years, we see the group returning to Earth in a completely overgrown and in ruins New York City. And Lisa carrying a little baby named Kashamba, cause you know who that baby daddy is. Wasp is also sporting a brand new robot body, so she can probably run for another presidential term now. And she and a scientist named Reynolds confirm that all the zombies seem to be either dead or gone from the planet, which means it's time for the last survivors of the human race to start a new life for themselves themselves in the ruins of the old world. But we'll get to that in the next video. For now, let's bite into the breakdown. I'm not sure if anything Robert Kirkman writes in his introduction to the collected edition is to be believed. Though I am glad to learn I'm not the only one to always think of the Karate Kid when I hear about Marvel editor Ralph Macchio. But if any of it is to be believed, Kirkman didn't want to write this book because he didn't want to be labeled as the zombie guy. And that makes sense to me because it did feel that way when this was coming out, and so was The Walking Dead. And perhaps that's a large part of the reason that this book became something so different. Rather than being about the last superhero survivors or last human survivors in a world full of superpowered zombies, which would have been something more along the lines of what we saw in the Ultimate Fantastic Four issues that introduced the zombies, this was a story that was actually about the zombies themselves and their struggles to feed their hunger. That kind of allowed the comic to embrace the ridiculousness, the silliness, and the horror all at once, which honestly probably made this comic better than it maybe should have been. The art is also pretty noteworthy. Sean Phillips doesn't leave me with the impression that he's exactly the best artist in the world, but his art certainly works very well here. Most of it feels very focused on poses, like it's a stop-motion comic made with action figures. It gives everything a very static look, but that's so perfect for imitating the feel of the shambling, Romero-style zombie in a static medium. I especially love how he hides very easy to miss little details in the art so that the careful observer can predict the coming plot. Like the tiny wasp we can just barely see when she's sneaking up on Magneto or following Giant Man. Or Silver Surfer barely being in view in a panel right before Luke announces having seen him. But the atmosphere is really enriched by June Chung's colors, which are all so muted and bleak, really giving the feel and look of a rotting, decaying world. I especially love the art team's choice of emphasizing the zombie teeth. Phillips draws the teeth extra large on zombies, and Chung makes sure to leave them bright while darkening everything around them. It's a distinctive and iconic look for the zombies that leaves a lasting image in the mind and immediately separates them from those still alive. So what all this means is that I'm giving this series a recommendation level of high. It's a short, fun, and unique take on the zombie genre, which makes it still worth checking out despite whatever faults it may have. The collected edition gets 1 set of zombie teeth. Spooky. Which is a fairly good thing, I suppose. It has an extremely silly introduction from Kirkman in the front and a nice big cover gallery in the back, complete with a little gallery of the original covers being referenced. I do wish that they had put the original covers full-sized, side by side with the zombie covers so you could really appreciate the changes, and that they had put that between the issues, because personally it bothers me when collected issues aren't divided by their covers, but you can't have everything, I guess, and that's not really enough of a problem to actually deduct a lot of points. Thanks everybody for watching. As I said, expect plenty more Marvel zombie goodness for you to sate your hunger on over the rest of the month. Until then, be sure to like and subscribe and all the YouTube things. That's not just a thing we YouTubers say just for fun. It really does help the channel, and it lets me know you're there and that you care. And helps ensure that you'll be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.